Hello, fifth graders. Today we're going to go over place values, algebra, how to multiply decimals, and we're going to go over fractional word problems to finish it off. So for the first section, place values, it says write the 5-digit numbers, and we're going to do that for number 2 and number 3. So number 2, it says 80,000 plus 5,000 plus 400 plus 20 plus 8, and we're just going to get the sum of these values. So it says 80,000 plus 5,000 plus 400 plus 20 plus 8, and now I'm just going to add all of these like this, vertically like this for each place value. You'll get 8, 2, 4, 5, and 8. So your sum should be 85,428. So there's a pattern over here that I'm going to talk about right now. So if you notice, 8 is in the ones value, and we see that in the final answer, 8 is also in the ones value. And over here, we see that 2 is in the tens value over here, and we see that the final answer also has a 2 in the tens place. It also applies to 4 in the hundreds place, 5 in the thousands, 8 in the 10,000s. So using this information, using this pattern, instead of writing it all out over here like this and adding them like this, you can do this mentally in your head and just be able to write it down without having to do all of this extra work. So I'm going to show you how to do that mentally for number 3 over here. So we know that the 1 in the first number 100 is in the hundreds place. So wait, let me just write all the place values like this. So we know that 100, the 1 in the 100 is in the hundreds place. So I'm going to place the 1 in the hundreds place in your final answer, which is here. And we know that 8 in the second number, we already did 100, is in the tens place. So I'm going to place this in the tens value, which is over here. And we know that 1 is in the ones place, so I'm going to place it in the ones place. And we know that 4 is in the tens place, which is just 1 right after the decimal point. So I have decimal point here, so I'm going to place the 4 over here. So now we use all of these 4 numbers, and matching them with your place values, you should end up with 181.4. Much more simpler and much more efficient. So for the second section we're going to go over is algebra. It says find the missing numbers. So number 1, it says 7,004 minus 717 equals the missing number. And I'm going to represent the missing number as an x value. So I'm just going to rewrite this on the right side over here. 7,004 minus 717 equals x. So now in order to find the x value over here, all we need to do is find the difference between these two numbers, which I'm going to do on the right side over here. So 7,004 minus 717 over here. So now I'm just going to subtract these normally like I would just do. And so let me just do this. 9, 14, and then we will end up with 9 over here. And then, oh wait, just kidding. We will end up with 7 over here. And 9 minus 1 equals 8 over here. I don't know what I was thinking. Now minus 7 will end up with 2 and 6 over here. So your final answer for number 1 should be 6,287. For your other questions, you could also represent the missing numbers as x as I did before, as I did for number 1. So for the third section we're going to go over is multiplying decimals. It says find the product. So number 1, we're going to find the product as 0.4 and 0.04. So the way I like to multiply decimals is just place them vertically one on top of another. I like to put the one with the greater number of digits, which in this case is 0.04 on the top. So like this, 0.04 times 0.4. So when you place these values, you don't need to match the decimals like you would usually do when you're adding decimals. But since we're multiplying decimals, it is a bit different where you, it really doesn't matter where you place all of these values. The decimals don't have to align. The tenses don't have to align. And so after you just wrote it out like this, all you're going to have to do is just multiply them. So ignore the decimal first when you're multiplying. We're going to worry about the decimals after. Right now, without the decimals, we're just going to multiply them normally like how we would multiply numbers. So 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 1. And then 0, and we know that 0 to any number is 0. So now we're just going to add them how we would do when we're finding products. And now we end up with this as our product. Well, the thing is that now we have to add the decimals. since we're multiplying by decimals. So in order to find the decimal point, like where to place the decimal point in your final answer, we're going to look at your first number over here, 0.04. So we notice that the decimal point was moved twice to the left, all the way from the right side. So I'm just going to write 2 over here. And we know that 0.4 was moved just once to the left to get to the decimal point, from all the way from the right. So now I'm going to add these two values, 3, and incorporate this into your final answer. So I'm going to have the decimal point over here. Right now, as of now, it's over here. And now I'm going to move it left 3 times because 2 plus 1 equals 3. That's how we're going to incorporate the 3. So once I move the decimal 3 times to the left, you will end up with 0.016, which is in fact your final answer. So make sure that you have to find out how many times the decimal is moved to the left for the first number and the second number, and we're going to add these two together to know how many times you move the final answer to the left. So in this case, the first number had 2, the second number had 1, and we added this to get 3, and we have to move the final answer 3 times to the left. And there is your final answer. Now the last section we're going to go over is fraction word problems. So as I read this problem, I'm just going to highlight the important information that I think will prove useful to solving this problem. So I'm going to take out a highlighter and just highlight the important information. So it says Josh spent 3/4 of an hour swimming. I think this will be important because it involves fractions over here. And 5/6 of an hour biking. Afterwards, he ran for 1/8 of an hour. How much time did Josh exercise before he went running? So before I get to solving this problem, I feel like what I have to do first is map Josh's process. So we know that he went swimming at first. So I'm going to write swim. And we know that after he went swimming, he went biking. And we know that after he went biking, he went running. And now the question asks for how much time did Josh exercise before he went running? So before he went running would include swimming and biking over here. So we're going to find out how much time he exercised for both swimming and biking. So what we need to do is add the time he spent on both. So swimming, he spent 3/4 of an hour. Biking, he spent 5/6 of an hour. So we're going to add these two together to find out the total time he spent before he went running. So in order to add fractions, you're going to need a common denominator. So over here, 4 and 6 are not common denominators. So in order to set up a common denominator, we're going to find the LCM of 4 and 6, which stands for least common multiple. So in order to do that, I'm going to state all the common multiples that we know. So 4, 8, 12, and 16. 6 we know as 6, 12, 18. So now over here, we already know there's a common denominator, which is 12. This is the least common denominator. So we're going to set both of these denominators into 12. And in order to do that, we need to multiply the 4 by 3 in order to get 12 as the least common denominator. And if you multiply the denominator, you're going to have to multiply to the numerator. So I'm going to multiply 3 to the numerator as well. So it applies to the second fraction as well. I'm going to multiply 6 times 2 to get a common denominator of 12. And I'm going to multiply the numerator the same, so because once you multiply to the denominator, you're going to do the same to the numerator. You will, for the first fraction, you're going to end up with 3 times 3, which is 9, 12, and then the second fraction is 10, 12. So now since we have a common denominator, that's going to be the common denominator of our final fraction, and we're going to add the numerator, which is 19. So your final answer should be 19/12 of an hour. And that's it for today, guys.